Okay. Okay. Do the kids have experience with sheep?
Oh, yes. Yeah, a lot of them do.
Oh, that's
But you ask them what kind of sheep you have, they don't know.
Oh.
They'll just say, I don't know, they're Navajo sheep. They're just sheep.
The furry kind.
Yeah. So a lot of them. So our kids knew what churro, the difference between churro and Merano and some of the other breeds that are out there. Last time I checked, we had 16 different breeds.
Really?
Oh my
sheep,
gosh.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought it was just a handful of different.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sharon, what is the significance of the Churro sheep to you and to your family and to Navajo culture?
Well, the churro was the first one that the Spaniards brought in to the Navajo people long ago, and they're, in our language, they're called the leader of the sheep, because they're a survivor, and they can go like 7 days without water, and they're a desert animal, and then they have the long fur that was just wonderful for the rugs. And so the people, they had already dreamt about this, and in this, like in a spirit, somebody found a little fetish of a sheep, and they knew they were coming. And so when they first saw them, when the Spaniards brought them, and then we embraced them, and we've kept them going. And before the long walk, they had a lot of churro sheep. And after the long walk, other breeds were introduced, and they kind of became extinct. And through the work of Dr. McNeil, he brought a lot of them back to the reservation.
How did the Churro sheep's return to Navajo bring into focus a way of life that was almost lost because the sheep was almost lost?
I think my dad was really instrumental in reintroducing. He's the one that told us, those are the sheep that I knew when I was growing up as a child. And he said they're very hardy. He said, we need to bring those back. He said, I don't know how you're going to get them back, but so we talked to Dr. McNeil, and he's the one that was, so we're probably one of the first families that brought the Churro sheep back. And then right before my dad passed, a whole truckload of them came back to the reservation. He was happy, and we were happy, because we had gotten the sheep back to our land, and we are still, we took care of them. But still, a lot of people, especially the traders and stuff, they don't like that wool, and they call it trash wool, and because they're not educated on it, so, but for us, it's like one of the best things that ever happened to our family, because of the wool. And like I was saying, in the museums, those are the best, they're the ones that are, the rugs that are still surviving today. Some of them are like 300 years old, 500 years old. Those are the rugs that are made from the churro wool. So.
How were they lost?
The
churro?
The churro? They just became, they were killed off during the sheep reduction in the 1930s.
In the 1930s?
Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of the people just cried when their herds were shot in the corral. The women were just devastated. And so, and then little by little they came back. And a lot of the elderlies that went, a lot of them grieved so much that their sheep were shot and killed, that a lot of them died too that way.
These were federal agents who shot them. So can you describe the loss of that? This isn't like losing a pet. Of course they love the sheep, but this is intrinsic to your way of life and being independent.
Yes.
So federal agents came and shot the sheep during the sheep reduction in the 30s, but why was this so devastating? Of course they love the sheep, but why was it so devastating to their independence and their way of life?
Well, one of the reasons was they were saying that it was the drought now, that the sheep were destroying the landscape, and you know there was hardly any more grass, and they were blaming the sheep. So they came in and they just went to the corrals and just shot them, and they didn't even bury them or anything. They just left them piled there, and the people that was their livelihood. We get the meat, we get the wool, we use it that way, and it's a sustenance that we have. And when that happened, it just pretty much killed a lot of the spirit of the people. And from experiencing that, and when you talk about that, a lot of the elders, they become very sad, and they say, I know, we know, but they were happy when we brought the churro back. They remembered the long-haired sheep, because it's different. It's different from any other breed of sheep that they have on the reservation now.
Stacia, how did you meet the Begays, and what drew you to this story?
I met them back in, the mid-90s, and it was for the first Sheep is Life conference that Sharon and her family were helping to organize. And I wasn't able to attend the conference. I was at the Albuquerque Tribune at the time. But I was really drawn to the fact that this family was involved with bringing, a type of sheep back. And I don't have any background with sheep, but I met the family. As soon as I met them on a Sunday morning, I was just really blown away by the commitment to this, and how the family was able to rise above just the daily living and see the bigger picture, and recognize that the sheep embody so much for the Navajo people, and for Sharon's family. And imagine Sharon and her sisters, they had little kids at the time, very small children, but they were able to undertake this project and bring the sheep back, and what a big project to help save the sheep. But they recognized that it was important for their family, and so I was just really drawn to it, and found myself returning as often as I could.
Is there a photo for you that illustrates the heart of this story?
A lot of the pictures I made, and it wasn't until later that I could see the spiritual underpinning of the picture, and what I felt at the time. One image that I really felt when I was making was during Heather's coming of age ceremony, her kinalda, and she's, as part of the ceremony, she runs in the different directions, and it's the last image in the book. So she's running, and I'm behind her, and her velveteen is billowing, and she becomes part of it. She becomes part of the land and the air, and I just really felt in that moment, this is what this is all about. And it's not just about sheep, and it's not just about bringing back the weaving. It's about saving an identity. And so many of us, I grew up in the Midwest, and in just a suburban neighborhood. I didn't have any direct connection to the land or to my ancestors. And what I saw in the family when I experienced in some of these images was finding a connection to who came before them and the generations that would come after. This wasn't just about what they were doing in the day. This is what they were doing to help their great-great-grandchildren and to reconnect with their great-great-grandparents, and what it means to be Navajo. And so part of what drew me to the story is the universal message. I've shown this work to a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and they can still relate, because it's about living for something bigger than you are. And especially at a time when technology changes our lives and how we move and connect and communicate every few years or so, you can often live very shallowly. And something like this gets you into a deeper connection with your land and your culture and your community and family. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon, what is the beauty of Genito like?
It's where I was raised. I was born and raised there, and my umbilical cord is buried in the sheep corral. And that's my connection to that place. And no matter where I go in the world, I will always return there. because of the sheep, my family, and coming out there with my grandparents. And my mom was born in that area. My grandfather came out there when they were friends with the Hopis. And years later, we had the Navajo Hopi, relocation, where they were. Well, I think it's really from the government that made kind of told us we're supposed to be enemies, but we're not. We still work together, and so that's like very special to me. And I even put like my children's umbilical cord in that area, so that like I always tell them, this is where you're going to return, no matter where you go. And my grandfather told me that. He says, even if you leave this land right here, he said, I'm going to sing songs, and you're going to come back here. I'm going to always find you, And so that's how I'm connected to Genito. That way.
Stacia, how can photography help explain the story of a place like this?
Not so much explain as to experience, I would hope, on a level where you can, feel the dryness and hear the wind and have to search for water on a daily basis. There's no running water. So to me as a storyteller, I like to find that universal story and share it with others, so that people can understand what it might be like to live here.
And Sharon, how did the churro reconnect your family to culture and tradition of your family's past?
Well, at one time we had a dysfunction in our family with alcoholism. And, some of our family members were going down that road. And by bringing the churro back, it made us focus as a family on that sheep. And also because of what it means, because it's our livelihood. We like I said, we made rugs from it, and felted it, and so we got everybody involved, and it brought the whole family back together, and so we still stick together. We're a very small family, but we stick together and we help each other out. And my mom always told us that, when you have siblings, sometimes your siblings don't help. So I'm raising you so that my children will all help one another in the future, and then help their children, and so forth, the next generation. So that's how, very significant in that way too. And the churro is kind of like the buffalo, where the buffaloes almost became extinct. And that's how that's how I see the churro anyway. So they bring back a very spiritual animal that way.
And Stacia, what is the importance of the message you found in this photographic journey that you undertook?
I think we all need to ask what our identity is and what we are going to pass on to our children, and what our ancestors worked for, and who we are. It's easy to not acknowledge that on a personal level, and to get sucked into the common culture. But that's what I would set out as a storyteller, to have people question, what is the bigger picture of my life? How can my spirituality go past Sunday church or the mosque or the synagogue? How can it go into every aspect of my life, and as a way of having a deeper connection? And hopefully the Begays story will inspire people to look inside themselves and find that.
And Sharon, you have a reason for teaching Navajo culture, which you do now, to school children. You had to leave Navajo and come back. Mm-hmm. So how do people carry themselves into the future, and how can the churro help?
And I think, like I was saying, it's a very strong and spiritual animal. And for us, as Navajo people and people all over the world, how we need to be open to embrace, because the way we're taught is that every human being is a five-finger person. In Navajo, we say we're all belashlai, which means a five-finger person. If you cut yourself, you're going to, bleed red blood. It's not any color. So we have to embrace, the world like that. And that's how, through the teaching of the Navajo, that's how I teach the children, you know, that to be open, but to go forward, you know, go off the reservation, experience things out in the world, and not just be stuck on the reservation, because it's kind of like a whole different mentality, you know. And a lot of times I think the younger people are afraid to go out. And I tell them, be like the churro, you know, go out and, you know, embrace the world and, you know, get a new knowledge. And my grandfather always say, you can go off and be in the world, but always come back and help your people. And that was one thing that always stuck in my mind, was to come back and help my kids, because he said, if you look behind you, there's a whole line of Navajo children and people that want to follow in your footsteps. So I had to be a good role model. So I've always tried to be that person like that, you know, being a Navajo. And in Navajo, you're always supposed to introduce yourself with your 4 clans, you know. It's very important. And so I tell the kids, and that's what I teach them. That's the first thing, the first lesson that they learn when they come in as a kindergarten. You know, they have to know their name and then their 4 clans. That way they know how they're related to the other people on the reservation and then outside. Because we have a lot of families that are multiracial. We have a lot of half black kids, half white kids. So, you know, we have to integrate all that and embrace them in that way in our nation. So I'm just going to introduce myself, if that's okay. You know, I'm from the Edgewater clan, born for the Red House clan, and my maternal grandfathers they're called the Honeycomb clan, and then my paternal grandfathers are the Tarring House clan. So that's how, if you know, for Navajo people that are listening, you know, I'm trapaha kintlichini bashichin sanjikin dashichedo kia ani edashinal. So, and I actually, by the time the kids leave high school, they should know 16 of their clans.
16?
16, yes. So.
Why is this important for young people? I know you had to go to boarding school when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen now, but why is it so important for young people to be connected to this culture, even if you want them to go out into the world and come back?
We still have boarding schools. And,
oh, I'm sorry.
And they are teaching now. They've done a turnaround, and they are teaching a lot of the culture. And they're more stronger in the culture now, because like when I was going to school, you know, they tried to, you know, cut it out and tell us we were not Navajo. We needed to become white people, you know. So, and that was one of the things that I always said was, you know, my grandfather scared me one day. He said, keep learning your language and always speak Navajo, even if you have to hide it, you know, and keep it inside yourself, because he said once you stop speaking Navajo, you're not going to be Navajo any longer. So I was always afraid of not being Navajo. So I was, you know, at night, you know, with the girls, we would get together and we would talk Navajo. And we had like dormitory aides that were, you know, that would, you know, wash our mouth out with soap and things like that if they caught us. But so we would always still talk Navajo.
How has holding on to that, through all those challenges, what has it meant to you, and to be able to also give that to the next generation?
I think it really makes me proud of who I am, you know, being a Navajo woman. And that's another thing that I learned from my mother. She said, this Mother Earth is always turning. And as a girl, as a woman, that's how you're going to be. You're Mother Earth. So keep things turning, keep things moving. And so that's how I embrace. And for the longest time, I waited to be a grandma. And I am a grandma now, so that's cool, you know.
Thank you so much. This has been really lovely.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else we missed or that you wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on?
Just, you know, just my dad.
Okay.
You know, he was really the one that was instrumental in bringing back the churro. And all his life, you know, he was an only child. He lost his mom when he was only like 4 hours old. And so, you know, and he was always sad until he got married. And then he had girls, nothing but girls. And he knew that he was going to be taken care of you know, and in the Navajo tradition, they had to stay around, and the in-laws had to come to his house, and so he knew like that, you know. So when he turned 104, that's probably why he was happy when he left, you know. So he told us, I set the bar high, it's up to you to continue it now. That was the message he gave us. So,
That's great. Thank you so much, Sharon.
yes.
It was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah.